If you had all the experience in the world, but we're starting over today, what would you do? Or are you a new agent trying to figure out what you need to do? Well, that's what we're going to talk about today. So stick around, watch this video as we get to hear from someone who has not just years of experience, but years of experience coaching new agents and what he would do. So without further introduction or without further ado, Jeff Culbertson, thank you for doing this today, and look forward to this discussion and learning from somebody that has such a vast knowledge and experience in our industry.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know if it's something to be proud of or something to be concerned with, but I started in 1978. Most of the people watching this probably weren't even alive in 1978.
I was too.
But interesting story. I've told it so many times. I don't like to bore people with it, but I grew up in Lincoln when it was a small town, little Lincoln, California. I moved down to San Jose, didn't know a soul. My uncle had convinced me to get my real estate license, and I was going to go to school. And next thing I knew, I was out. I met a man that changed my life, and that's what part of what you're talking about here is what is it that what happened, right? How did these 43 years happen? And I think a lot of it is in my career I've been lucky to have mentors at the right time, at the right place. And first couple brokers I met with said I was too young, and then I met a man that literally changed my life. And first day gave me some blank cards and a 3x5 card with a little talk on it, which was, "Hi, my name is, I represent Better Homes Realty in the area." And he took me out after we talked for maybe 45 minutes and dropped me off. And first day of the business. I know it's hard to believe. Nowadays they put somebody in jail, right? but and I started knocking doors, and about the 10th house there was a guy there washing his car, and I'm sure I was shaking. And that's the thing I tell all the new agents is nobody's born for this. You have to muster up the courage. And asked him the question, and his wife Georgia just happened to look through the screen door and asked a question that I've been asked, hundreds of times. Well, where would we move to? I joke around, as you know, with all the new agents. It's very rare you talk to somebody on the phone or at their door and they say, "We've been waiting for one of you to come by," right? They don't do that. But so that was the start of it. I was up and running. I had my first listing within my first week, and that's not the normal, the A norm. It's just not. It's not what happens most of the time. And so, but then Tom, that was my broker's name. He saw something in me, and he eventually got me in front of some old Tommy Hopkins videos and the old Beta and VHS. And so I used a lot of that and continued to prospect and got better at my presentation skills, and did that and did what most people would consider pretty well. And then in 1987, 1988, started talking to a friend of mine, and I decided to open my own office, which became my company with some partners, a company called Contemporary Realty. We ended up with 18 offices, about 900 people, plus a mortgage company, which is still around, called Princeton Capital. That's based still, I believe, in Las Gatas. And then sold the company to what's now Anywhere, which was Realogy, which was Sendant. And I ended up working for them from 1999 to 2016 in executive capacities, president of Los Angeles, Cabo Banker, San Diego, Silicon Valley, Sacramento, Tahoe. Held a lot of different positions with them, all real estate related. And then in 2016, we were living in Southern California, my wife and I, who's also a broker, and decided enough was enough, time to call it a day. So we moved back up here and be closer to our grandchildren. And so it's hard to talk about all the things that happened there, but I do think going back to the first office in San Jose, one of the things that brokers find out, if those that survive, and by the way, a lot of real estate brokers don't make it, they find out what they're good at. And I was a pretty good coach with experienced people. I was pretty good at helping new people take their business to another level. But I think if you were to talk to most of the people, literally hundreds of people that I've been involved in their careers, they would say that I'm pretty good coach, pretty good mentor, pretty good trainer with new people, and I work at it. I try to get better at it all the time with the training programs, and that's part of what I think most good realtors do, is they're always trying to figure out how to get better.
Absolutely, and so with those different offices, if you obviously in our current as well, how many overall agents would you say that you've been in some capacity or another overseeing?
Well, at one time when I was what they called executive vice president for Realogy, the Coldwell Banker, the Southwestern region, employees and people, I guess I had about 7,000 people at one point. But in terms of real estate agents going out, I never wandered too far away from the field. I always like to get in front of the agents and share listing ideas, listing presentation ideas, working with buyers, how to hold a more effective open house, those types of things, and that always kept me close to the business. But I would say, it's hard to say, but literally, without a doubt, hundreds of people. I've been through, I sold a house. I used to always tell people when they would complain about the market that I closed a house on Langwood Lane in San Jose, never forget the street. And it was a 15.5% FHA GPM buy down. And in those days, the sellers used to pay points on the FHA. It was about 6 points, and that was like 1982, 1981, 1982. I can't remember what year it was. But yeah, that was a difficult time. And then, of course, 07, 08, 2007, 2008 were very difficult years for the industry. And then, there's a lot of little hiccups in the market. 99 was 93, 92. There were some difficult years. The market does what the market does. You just kind of there's some years that are going to be better than others. But the key to it, I think, is to stay focused on your plan. You've got to have a plan and stick to it. I think too many people, and I understand. I know what it's like to have more month than money, right? And so I get that. But you've got to have a plan and stay with the plan. That's the key. It's funny. It's out there now. There's so many. You find someone that matters to you. And in my day, it was cassette tapes or now of course you just you go on YouTube or there's a lot of different opportunities out there to listen to people, and those people kind of become your mentors and your coaches online, so to speak. But I do think part of it is to just determine that you're going to be not only one of the survivors, but one of the people that comes out of it on top. And I talked about this a couple weeks ago at the office meeting. I think too many agents allow themselves to what I call flea train themselves. Where basically they somebody somewhere in their lives, somebody told them they couldn't jump out of the jar, and so they never really become all they can become. And one of my goals for people is to help people understand that, and I think I have some great success stories, some people that I'm very proud of, that when I first met them, they lacked self-confidence. They lacked, and now most of them are still in the business, still doing extremely well. And so part of it is just having a lot of self-confidence and finding people that you trust, that you want to speak with. And that's why coaches have become so popular. When I started there, your coach was your manager, your broker. And then all of a sudden, Mike Ferry, giving Mike some credit, Mike brought the coaching thing into play. That's Tom and Matt's dad. And then, there were others, Danny Kennedy and others had some training coaching programs. But I think, I've never had a coach. I've had multiple coaches, but nobody that's ever been my coach. And I've had multiple mentors. But I think if I were to start over again, if I obviously could afford it, the economics, of course, play into everything. but I would have a coach.
Yeah.
I would have a coach.
Makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to see your own hitch in the swing, right?
Yeah, well, what it does is the people that I've watched, and I've listened to that have coaches, they're able to correct flaws in a shorter period of time. There's somebody else. There's a it's not a better set of eyes. The old saying, it's just a different set of eyes, and I think that helps people.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, one which probably nobody's, was the contract really one page? I get that a lot, and it was actually one page. California contract was one page. Now 16 plus addendums and everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But the question I get is, and you tend to get more questions in a challenging market than you do in a market that's not as challenging, right? Because in a challenging market, everybody's trying to figure out what to do next. In a market that we were in before, it was pretty much an order taker market, right? And if you just happened to get the high bid, there really wasn't any salesmanship or salespersonship. There wasn't. You didn't have to have any sales skills. You didn't have to be able to advise people as to the market is what the market is right now, but do you really want to miss another? Because if you look back in California, even when the market went down 07, 08, 09, and then it started to come back, a lot of people made a lot of money on real estate because they bought in 09 and 10 and 11. Those people are still out there, right? And they're happy that they did. So it's kind of like trying to time the stock market, right? But the one thing that is different today than when I started, rents have always been, because I started in San Jose. Rents in the Bay Area have always been expensive, but now they're so expensive, right? And as it relates to people's incomes, that it's really hard not to if you're going to stay in the state, it's really hard to not buy a property and know what your payment's going to be for a period of years, right? Versus if you're renting right now and you're paying $3,000 a month, next year at this time you could be $3,500 or $3,800 a month, right?
Yeah.
So I think a lot of it is, and I'm obviously, after all these years, I'm a big advocate of home ownership, right? If you can.
Yeah.
So.
That makes sense. And what would you say is the most common mistake agents are making right now?
I think a lot of them, first of all, what I see is a lot, and we've always talked about this, so many people give up right before it's about to take off, right? I think that for new agents. For experienced agents, I think a lot of them are, they're not panicking, but they're reining in too much on what they've done to get them to that place, right? In other words, it's easy to become depressed in this business to some degree. It's easy to stop your mailings into your farm area, or it's easy to stop if you're purchasing leads or whatever you're doing. It's almost too easy, right?
Yeah.
So what I see people doing is thinking, because the market has shifted, that they have to shift their plan.
Yeah.
And I think that's a mistake. If they have a plan that's working, it may not work as well as it did for listings a year ago, because every listing was selling overnight.
Yeah.
But it will work, right? And the thing is, this is the thing I tell people all the time, is the company we had in the Bay Area, Contempla Realty, we grew it during a down market.
Yep.
Because we offered people a place to go to where there was positive energy, where there was good things happening. As an agent, you have, the number one thing you have to do in the morning is make sure that you show up ready to go. It's like Tommy Hopkins used to say, man, it's showtime, right? You can't show in with a long face, and people don't want to deal with people that appear to have a problem, right? Tom, my broker Tom used to always tell me when I would go on a listing presentation, he says, I want you to show up with some pep in your step. Right? And I thought, because he used to always tell me the energy sells.
Yeah.
And I still try to bring that same energy to whatever it is that I'm doing, whether I'm addressing the agents on the team or doing the training program or a listing presentation. And again, it doesn't mean I come out of my shoes, but I try to gather myself and bring something to the plate, so to speak. I would say, looking back, because that is a question when you ask me what questions I get a lot, I used to get that a lot more when I would go from office to office.
Yeah.
Certain agents would ask me, and I used to tell most of I look at the most successful people in the business, not the people that are super connected, like, in certain markets like Beverly Hills, there's people that have worked tremendously hard to become connected with business agents and people like that basically control some of the business down there. But just, a market like Greater Sacramento or San Jose, if you look at the people that do well there in all markets, most of those people, and I know it sounds old-fashioned that time, but most of them have a geographic farm.
Yeah.
Right? And they've taken that geographic farm, and they still work it, they don't give it up, but they've also built a sphere farm, right? So they've sold all these people homes, and these people have moved wherever they've moved to. Back when I was selling, once they moved out of San Jose, they were gone. In today's world, especially with a company like EXP, we can service them and help them just about anywhere, right? So if I'm sitting here in Roseville, California, and I sell somebody a house and they move to LA, I want to keep them in my sphere of influence, right? But again, when I look at most of the top agents that I've known over the years, they have some type of a geographical farm, or they're really, really good at online lead conversion, right? And that's something that didn't exist, when I was selling. We had, you'd run an ad in the newspaper, and you get some calls and you hoped it worked, or you take an ad in a Homes magazine and you hope you get some calls. But today, of course, as we know, because we monitor this in a big way, online lead generation is a real thing. They come through in big numbers, and the difference between individuals and or teams that do well with that and that don't do well with it is they work really, really hard at becoming good at conversion. And if you're not good at conversion, it's kind of like when people I used to have this thing called the 4 Ps of real estate. You have to have a plan. You have to prepare, which is, educate, that type of thing. You have to prospect. And then you have to have great presentation skills. And people would say, what's the most important? And I'd say, I think the most important thing is you have to have great presentation skills. Because if you could prospect like crazy, but if you can't sit in front of somebody and present, if you don't have a plan, you might prospect for a week and give it up, right? If you don't prepare, you don't understand the contract, you don't understand all the things that matter to consumers, your reputation's not going to be what it should be, right? So I think having great presentation skills, where you can sit down with someone and say, this is how we work, and this is why we work this way, and in essence, here's why this is a great thing for you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. I think if you can't bring that mindset to the people that are sitting in front of you, to understand that this person knows what she's doing, or this person knows what he's doing, I think you're doing yourself a disservice, because it's not an easy business. It's hard to get in front of that seller. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of work, and you're basically on stage. Show up ready to do your best.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank
you.
you.
For your time today.
Hey, it's great.
Appreciate it.
Great to do it. I love sharing whatever it is that I could share with people like you about the business. Been doing this a long time.
And it shows. So thank you for watching today. Truly appreciate it. Please feel free, drop any questions that you have below. And if you haven't already, it'd mean a ton to me. Please like or subscribe wherever it is, as you see the screen pop up now. And again, if you want to see more like this, feel free to let us know. Talk to you soon, and have a great day.